Leo soul, radiant and bold, listen carefully. Someone in your family has done something truly terrible to you, and the universe is giving you just 24 hours to see the truth. You may have sensed it already. That uneasy whisper in your chest. The shift in the air when you walk into a room. The weight in your heart after a conversation that seemed harmless but left you exhausted. You've carried the silence with such grace that even those around you failed to notice the cost. But today, something larger than life is asking you to stop pretending. This isn't just another message. This is a moment of cosmic reckoning. If you found yourself here, it's not a coincidence. No Leo lands on this space by accident. Every soul that arrives in this sacred corner of eternal mindfulness has been called. Perhaps your call was subtle, a gentle nudge from your inner knowing. Or perhaps it came as a cry for clarity, a longing to finally put words to what your spirit has long known. Either way, you're here now, and the timing couldn't be more divine. Today, I'm not here to tell your future. I'm here to help you remember it. You've always known something felt off, an energy behind closed doors, a gaze that felt more jealous than proud, a family member who cloaked control as care. You see, what you're about to discover isn't new. It's ancient, it's ancestral, and it's been waiting for you to awaken to it. Because you, Leo, the sign of the sun, were never meant to be dimmed. But someone, a woman in your family line, has tried to silence your light. Whether consciously or unconsciously, she's sent energy your way that doesn't belong to you. Maybe it was judgment. Maybe it was manipulation disguised as love. Maybe she even crossed spiritual boundaries to shift your path. But the universe sees all, and it never lets shadow hide for long. The cards have spoken. And the hourglass has begun to turn. You only have 24 hours to witness what's being revealed. This isn't to instill fear, it's to awaken power. Because when truth meets timing, transformation becomes inevitable. That's where you are right now. On the edge of clarity, one breath away from full recognition. So let me ask you something. Have you ever felt drained after being around someone in your family, even though they smiled to your face? Have you ever second-guessed your brilliance because someone told you it was too much? Have you ever silenced your intuition just to keep the peace? If your heart says yes, then this message is already resonating. And I invite you to affirm that resonance. Leave a comment below with the words, "I feel the truth, not for me, but for yourself." Because when you name truth, you reclaim power. And when you reclaim power, no one, no shadow, no spell, no family pattern can stop what was always yours. Before we go deeper into what the tarot is revealing, before we uncover the role of the moon, the devil, and strength in your current transformation, I want to pause and express something that matters deeply. Thank you for being here. Every view, every like, every comment, every moment of your presence supports this sacred space. Your energy feeds this channel and allows messages like this one to reach those who need it most. It's because of you that we continue to rise. And believe me when I say this, you'll want to stay with me until the very last second of today's reading. What the universe is revealing is beyond what you expect. So tell me, my courageous Leo, what brought you here today? And are you ready to see what your soul has always known? In a room flooded with golden light, it's often the familiar presence, the one closest to us, that casts the deepest shadows. For you, dear Leo, this is not just poetic metaphor. It's a lived reality. The paradox of light is that it illuminates everything, including the truths we'd rather not see. And yet, when the light you radiate becomes too bold, too honest, too unapologetically real, it often becomes the very thing that others seek to dim. Especially those who claim to love you the most. As someone born under the sign ruled by the sun, you carry within you the brilliance of authenticity. Leo's heart is generous, proud, and deeply loyal. You shine because it is your nature to shine. But therein lies the wound. When your light reflects back the insecurities of others, especially someone in your own family, it doesn't always inspire love. Sometimes, it awakens envy. And when envy brews quietly in the corner of a familiar kitchen or behind a warm embrace, it becomes the kind of shadow that's hardest to confront. It wears the mask of care, speaks in the tone of concern, and acts in the name of love. But you've always known. You've always felt the misalignment through fatigue that doesn't make sense, subtle words that twist your worth, or decisions that made you question your path when you once felt certain. The cards confirm what your intuition already whispered. The Moon and the Seven of Swords have emerged together not as a warning, but as a mirror. The Moon speaks of illusion, of things hidden beneath the surface, where clarity is clouded by emotional fog. The Seven of Swords, meanwhile, reveals betrayal, theft not of physical possessions, but of confidence, time, energy, and peace. When these two archetypes dance together in the sacred language of tarot, they often point not to an outside enemy, but to a betrayal within the walls of the home. This is not always malicious. Sometimes, it is the unconscious projection of a soul too wounded to celebrate another's rising. Still, the impact is real. It lingers like static in your energy field, like a weight behind your heart chakra. But here's the part often misunderstood: recognition is not accusation. You do not call this woman out to blame her. You call her energy into the light so that you may finally reclaim the parts of yourself she dimmed. This isn't about confrontation. It's about liberation. The pain caused was not because you were weak, but because you were open. You stayed vulnerable, you stayed hopeful, even when your intuition quietly ached for boundaries. That is not failure. That is courage misunderstood. There is a principle, deeply rooted in the wisdom of the awakened mind, that teaches us, all suffering begins with clinging to illusion. What we fear to look at gains more power than it deserves. But once seen fully, without resistance, the illusion dissolves. This is your moment of seeing. This is the gate that opens for 24 hours only, not as a deadline, but as a sacred invitation to clarity. If you miss it, you don't lose everything. But you delay a freedom that has waited lifetimes for you. And so you must ask yourself, what are you afraid to name, and who have you protected out of guilt instead of love? When you answer that not in anger, but in awareness, your healing begins. There is no need to cut people off in haste. But you do need to cut the cords that were never yours to carry. You do not have to burn bridges. You only need to stop walking back across the ones that always collapse beneath your feet. Because you, Leo, were born to rise in light. Not everyone will come with you. Not everyone can. And that is not your burden. That is your liberation. There's a pattern that many Leo souls carry, a pattern born not of weakness but of profound emotional nobility. You protect those who have hurt you. You justify their actions, defend their name, soften their words, and often carry the burden of their darkness in silence. Not because you're blind, but because you love deeply. Because somewhere in your core, you believe that shielding them is an act of spiritual maturity. You believe that being the bigger person means absorbing the blow without ever letting it show. And perhaps, for a while, that illusion served its purpose. But now it's time to look again with clearer eyes and a wiser heart. As someone who has worked with energy fields for years, I've seen time and again how emotional loyalty can become a form of self-abandonment. Especially for Leo, whose identity is often built around pride, honor, and the desire to uphold the image of a strong, radiant, united family. But what happens when maintaining that image starts to rot you from the inside? What happens when your silence becomes a prison, and your tolerance becomes the very thing that enables dysfunction to thrive? This is where the High Priestess appears in reverse. Not as a threat, but as a sacred reflection. Upright, she is the guardian of secrets, the intuitive bridge between realms. But when reversed, she signals that something hidden has begun to rise to the surface. A truth long buried is ready to emerge, not to shame or destroy, but to finally set you free. This card asks, are you willing to see what you've avoided? Not with fear. With courage. Let's be honest. You've smiled through dinners that drained your spirit. You've hugged those who once whispered behind your back. You've stood tall in rooms that never saw your full weight, and you've forgiven when your soul was still bleeding. Not because you're naive. Because you're fierce in your grace. But Leo, grace must never cost you your clarity. In teachings that explore the nature of liberation, there is a core truth that repeats: clinging to illusion is the source of prolonged suffering. When we fear the collapse of a structure like the illusion of family harmony, we begin to prioritize appearance over authenticity. But what if the collapse isn't something to fear, but something to welcome? What if tearing down the false is the only way to build something real? Choosing to see someone clearly doesn't mean you don't love them. It means you finally love yourself enough to stop betraying your own peace. It means recognizing that you can have compassion without sacrificing your dignity. The moment you stop protecting someone who's been hurting you directly or through emotional manipulation is the moment your energy begins to rise again. That's when your light returns, not as a performance, but as your birthright. The truth is not an enemy. It's a liberator. And the longer you postpone it, the longer you prolong the ache that lingers behind your strength. You're not being asked to cut people off in rage. You're being invited to cut the ties that have entangled your power with their unresolved pain. So ask yourself, how many times have you kept quiet to preserve someone else's comfort? How many times have you dressed your wounds in silence because exposing them might cause tension? And most importantly, what part of you is still waiting for permission to stop protecting those who would never do the same for you? Now is that permission. Now is the moment to choose clarity over comfort. To stand not against anyone, but firmly for yourself. Because you are not here to be the guardian of everyone else's image. You are here to be the guardian of your own soul. When the Devil and the reversed Queen of Wands appear together in a reading, something subtle yet deeply consequential is being revealed. These cards do not scream with drama. They whisper with precision. They point not to external chaos, but to an undercurrent of control that's been flowing quietly beneath the surface, often in the spaces we're told to call safe. Here, power is not used to guide or protect. It is used to manipulate, dominate, and diminish. The person behind this energy may not dress in darkness, but their presence often carries a weight that leaves others feeling smaller, dimmer, less whole. And this is where things become complicated, because when this person is family, when they carry your blood or sit beside you at the same table, it's harder to name what's happening. It's harder to admit that harm can come with a smile. Let's be clear, this is not about magic spells or black candles. This is about energy. Real, living energy that travels through words, glances, expectations, and unspoken roles. It's in the tone that shames you for shining too brightly. It's in the patterns that train you to seek approval by staying quiet. It's in the guilt you feel for wanting to leave the room when their energy enters. This is the darker side of the Queen of Wands reversed, someone who once had power, beauty, magnetism, but who now uses those gifts in ways that stifle rather than uplift. Leo, as the sign ruled by the sun, you are a carrier of light. And yet, your greatest challenge is often found in the way others respond to that light. Some admire it. Some bask in it. But others, especially those who haven't yet faced their own shadows, may see your radiance as a mirror reflecting everything they've denied within themselves. And when that happens, they try to dim you, not because you've done something wrong, but because your presence makes their own silence too loud. These attempts to shrink you may show up as passive-aggressive comments, as emotional manipulation masked as protection, or as resistance every time you try to grow. But you were not made to be small. You were made to remember your sovereignty. This is where the Strength card reclaims the stage. A card of inner resolve, of gentle power, of mastering the lion not by force but by presence. In its highest expression, strength is not about dominancy, it is about integrity. It is a reminder that nothing can control you when you are rooted in your own truth. That no energy, no matter how heavy, can influence you when you stand in alignment with who you really are. Think about the times you've walked into a room and immediately felt tension, as if your body knew something your mind hadn't yet caught up with. Or the way your mood shifted after just a few moments around certain people, leaving you confused, tired, or self-doubting. These are not coincidences. They are signals. Your body holds ancient wisdom, and your energy field knows how to recognize misalignment long before your logic does. And so I ask you gently, with compassion, not pressure, have you ever felt that being near a particular family member drains your spirit more than it fills it? Have you ever sensed that someone close to you is more comfortable when you are struggling than when you are thriving? If even part of you whispers yes, then write it below. Write, I recognize it. Not as a judgment, but as a declaration of awareness. Because awareness is the first breath of freedom. This is not about turning against others. It's about turning back to yourself. You don't need to confront or correct anyone right now. You only need to step back into your center, the place where your light is steady, your energy is clean, and your heart no longer bends to accommodate shadows that were never yours to carry. That's how you reclaim your peace. That's how you begin to rise, again. There's something sacred about the number 24. In the rhythm of the cosmos, it marks a full cycle of the Earth's rotation, a complete breath of the day. In numerology, 2 plus 4 becomes 6, a number of healing, harmony, and soul responsibility. It speaks not of urgency in the frantic, external sense, but of a quiet window opening in the internal landscape. When we say you have 24 hours to respond to this energy, it isn't a deadline designed to induce panic. It's a portal, an energetic opening designed to bring you back to yourself, back to your light, back to the clarity that was always waiting for your willingness. This ritual isn't complicated, because truth never is. It doesn't require incense, special tools, or dramatic ceremony. It only requires presence. It begins with the act of choosing a single object, something small, personal, and infused with your essence. It could be a piece of jewelry, a stone you've carried in your pocket, or even a folded note with a word that's carried you through darkness. The object itself doesn't hold power, your intention does. What you are really doing is anchoring the energetic shift into something physical so your body, your nervous system, and your mind can all come into agreement. When your hands clasp around this token and your breath deepens, the words you speak become more than sound, they become declaration. They become alignment. When you say, "I release all energy that no longer serves me," you are not casting anything away in anger. You are simply letting go of the illusions that no longer match who you've become. When you say, "I call my light back to me," you're calling home the fragments of yourself that you once gave away in fear, in obligation, in survival. You're telling your soul it is safe now. That you no longer need to be small to be accepted. That you no longer need to dim to be loved. And when you say, "I am protected, I am chosen, I am reborn," you're speaking directly to the energetic field around you. You're recalibrating your vibration. You are no longer waiting for someone to see you, you are seeing yourself, and in that, a new magnetism begins to activate. Energetically, what's happening during this ritual is profound. Your auric field, the electromagnetic field that surrounds and extends from your body, begins to shift. From an energetic standpoint, clarity, peace, and focus are not abstract emotions. They are frequencies. When you take time to consciously align your words, breath, and attention, you shift those frequencies. You're not just changing how you feel, you're changing what you attract. This is the essence of the law of attraction, not just thinking positive thoughts, but embodying a state of congruence so that the universe can respond in kind. And within that 24-hour window, something opens. Maybe it's a realization that had been just beyond your grasp. Maybe it's a message from someone that brings confirmation. Maybe it's a moment of stillness so deep that you finally understand why things unfolded the way they did. Whatever it is, it will not come as a loud sign. It will come as truth settling into place gently, like the final piece of a puzzle sliding into its corner. This is not a ritual of escape. It's a ritual of return. Return to the self you were before you forgot. Return to the energy that was always yours to hold. Return to the strength that no longer needs to roar because it is grounded in wisdom. You don't have to rush. You just have to be willing. Light, after all, does not force its way in. It simply waits for the opening. And in this moment, Leo, that opening is you. When the sun appears in a reading, especially after deep emotional work or cycles of karmic reckoning, it is not simply a promise of joy. It is a mirror held up to your truest self, free of distortion. It shines not only to illuminate your path forward, but to cast light on what once hid in shadow. Its presence marks a turning point, a moment when you begin to understand that clarity itself is healing. And when it arrives alongside the 10 of Cups, it speaks of a powerful kind of happiness, not one that is inherited or expected, but one that is consciously chosen, created, and claimed. There's something especially significant about this message for Leo, a sign ruled by the sun itself. You were born with light inside you, but somewhere along the way, someone else's pain may have convinced you that your brightness was too much. That you had to dim, adapt, perform, or please to be accepted. But this moment now is not about going back. It's about stepping forward. Because the sun is here not to return you to who you were but to reveal who you were always meant to become. And the truth is, you were never meant to carry the wounds of others. You were never meant to be the emotional container for generations of suppressed truths. If you felt burdened by family roles that limited your joy, or responsibilities that never felt freely chosen, then this is your call to release them. The Ten of Cups reminds you that fulfillment doesn't always come from the family we're born into, it often comes from the one we consciously build. You are allowed to redefine what love looks like. You are allowed to belong without betraying yourself. This is also the moment to tend to your physical well-being, especially if emotional stress has manifested in the body. When we carry energetic pressure for too long, particularly from family systems, it often shows up as tension in the stomach, restless sleep, or chronic fatigue. Begin by creating space in your day for rest that nourishes. Keep your meals light and grounding, drink water slowly and intentionally, and commit to a sleep rhythm that aligns with your natural cycles. These small acts are not indulgent. They are reparative. They tell your nervous system that it is finally safe to relax. If your financial life has been affected by guilt-based giving or entanglements within the family, this is your chance to establish clearer boundaries. Emotional debt is one of the most silent forms of bondage. But the freedom you seek is not in rejection, it's in sovereignty. Ask yourself what you felt obligated to pay, not just in money, but in energy. And know that you have the right to keep what you've worked for, to redirect your resources toward your own healing, your own goals. In relationships, be mindful of who you choose to let close. Don't fall for familiarity if it reminds you of the person who once tried to control or silence you. You don't need to repeat the pattern to finish the lesson. Love should feel like expansion, not management. Choose the connections that feel calm in your body. Choose the ones that don't require you to shrink in order to be held. And when it comes to your work or purpose, allow yourself to envision a path that is completely different from what was expected of you. For some of you, it may mean leaving behind the family business, or walking away from a job chosen to maintain peace. These choices are not betrayals. They are declarations of alignment. When you stop walking someone else's map, the real destination can finally appear. So take this light, this truth, this vision, and hold it close. Let it guide you not as a flash of inspiration, but as a steady flame. You are not here to keep the peace at the cost of your own becoming. You are here to end the cycle. You are here to write a new one. And now, as the warmth of the sun wraps around you and the promise of the Ten of Cups invites you forward, ask yourself one gentle question. What does joy feel like when it is yours fully, freely, and finally? That answer is the beginning of everything. And now, as we arrive at the final moment of this sacred journey together, I want to gently remind you of something you may have forgotten but have always known deep within your being. You were never meant to carry forward a legacy of pain. You did not come here to continue a lineage of emotional silence, self-sacrifice, or invisible suffering. You came to interrupt the cycle. You came to heal not just yourself, but a thread in the collective story of your family. You came to choose differently, to feel more fully, to live more freely. And even though it hasn't been easy, even though the path has demanded a kind of inner courage that few will ever see, you are doing it. With every insight you gain, with every choice to release what no longer serves you, with every moment you honor your own light over the expectations of others, you are rewriting your soul's contract with life. The truth is, healing rarely happens in grand gestures. It unfolds in subtle choices, choosing to rest instead of people please, choosing to say no without apology, choosing to see yourself as worthy not because someone else validates you, but because you no longer abandon your own heart. The ritual, the revelations, the recognition of patterns, they are only as powerful as your willingness to embody them. So let me ask you this: what are you going to do differently after this video? What will you choose to see that you used to avoid? Who will you forgive not for their sake, but for the peace that belongs to you? And most of all, what version of yourself are you ready to step into now that the truth has been spoken? You may be surprised at how quickly things shift when you act in alignment. Energy, after all, responds to conviction. And your conviction, dear Leo, is a fire the world needs. You are the one who stands when others shrink. You are the one who tells the truth even when it trembles in your throat. You are the one who dares to be radiant in a world that often asks us to dim. And for that, I honor you. So take what you've heard here today and let it echo through your next choices. Let it soften what needs softening and strengthen what is ready to rise. Let it remind you that nothing outside of you holds more power than your own decision to return to your light. You are not the product of your past. You are the author of what comes next. If you felt something shift within you today, if even one part of this message rang true, then leave a comment below and simply write, "I choose the light." Not for me, but for yourself. Let this be a declaration, a first step, a small but powerful act of self-recognition. Your words have energy. Let them carry you forward. And if you believe someone else needs this reminder too, don't keep it to yourself. Share this video. Let the ripple continue. Because when one soul heals, it creates space for others to do the same. Thank you from the depths of my heart for spending this sacred time with me. Every like, every comment, every moment you choose to be here is a gift to this channel, and it's what allows Eternal Mindfulness to continue sharing messages of healing, purpose, and soul transformation. You are not alone. You are deeply seen. And you are exactly where you need to be. Until we meet again, remember this: you are not just living, you are rising. You are not just hoping, you are creating. And you are not just surviving, you are fulfilling your destiny.